Have you ever seen a billionaire heir throw tradition to the wind and bring someone from an entirely different world into the most elite, soul-crushing circle in Greenwich? Just picture it. The cold stares, the whispered judgments, the kind of silence that screams you don't belong. Every step she took was under a microscope, her presence questioned, her worth picked apart by people born with silver spoons and stone hearts. Now imagine the war inside her, a woman brilliant beyond belief, forced to dim her own light just to survive the room. Bound by unspoken rules of class, silenced by the fear of rejection, she stood in the middle of it all, uninvited, yet undeniable. What happens when two lives on opposite ends of the spectrum crash together with the kind of force that can either wreck everything or rewrite fate itself? This isn't just about love, it's about raw, aching emotion. About courage rising when it's easier to stay quiet. And yes, about betrayal that cuts deeper than a knife. So don't look away, because what's coming will shake everything you think you know about loyalty, legacy, and what it really means to choose someone. This isn't a story. It's a battle cry wrapped in velvet. It's the grit beneath the glamour. In one single moment, it's about to change everything. No one in that room could believe their ears. Noah Sinclair, the heir to the billion-dollar Sinclair Hotels dynasty, had just shattered the silence with a bombshell. He was taking Lily Bennett, his assistant, to the gala. Not just any party, the most exclusive, invite-only, blue-blooded event in all of Greenwich. The news hit the elite club's private dining room like a lightning strike. Crystal glasses shook in Owen Mitchell's hands as he choked out a laugh, nearly spitting up his overpriced wine. His eyes gleamed with cruel delight. "You're kidding, right? You're actually bringing your assistant? That's rich." He snorted, slapping the polished mahogany table. "What's next, Noah? You gonna introduce her as your fiancée? Because that would be comedy gold." Around the table, smug grins spread like wildfire. The room buzzed, not with curiosity, but contempt. The rest of Noah's so-called old money circle exchanged sly glances, gripping their crystal tumblers a little tighter, as if settling in for what they assumed would be the next round of upper-class entertainment at Noah's expense. Brooke Sinclair, draped in diamonds and entitlement, didn't miss a beat. Her voice slithered across the table. "Sweetheart, your family name carries weight. The Sinclairs have a reputation that's taken decades to build. You really think you can waltz into Greenwich, biggest night with someone from, what do you call it, the working class?" Noah's jaw tightened. He could feel the bitter taste creeping up his throat, but he swallowed it down, eyes locked on the very people he'd grown up with. People who'd helped design the invisible cage he was now fighting like hell to escape. This wasn't about status. It never was. It was about Lily. Lily, the woman who ran the entire chaos-fueled calendar of the Sinclair Empire like a general commanding an army. Lily, who spoke 4 languages, charmed high-stakes international clients, and still found a way to send money back to Savannah to take care of her mom and younger brother. Lily, who quietly hid her degree from the University of Colorado because someone once told her no one hires an assistant smarter than the executive she reports to. Noah's voice cut through the room like a blade. "I'm not bringing her as my assistant." The laughter stopped cold. "She's my guest," he said, calm but unwavering. "And if any of you think this is some kind of joke, then you've underestimated her, and you've definitely underestimated me." Owen's smirk faded, his tone sharpening like a knife hidden behind silk. "Noah," he said, shaking his head, "you're not hearing me. This isn't just some high society cocktail hour. It's the Greenwich Gala, the most scrutinized night on the calendar. Everyone will be watching. The Remingtons, the Langleys, the Thornhills. Families with pedigree, power, and generations of legacy." He leaned in like he was delivering a warning. "And you're walking in with Lily Bennett?" Noah's fist slammed down on the table, hard enough to rattle the crystal and silence the room. Not a word. Not a breath. All eyes locked on him, waiting for a meltdown. But what they got was something else. Noah leaned forward slowly, lips curling into a quiet, deliberate smile, the kind that made people nervous. "Exactly," he said. "Lily isn't one of them." He let the silence breathe. "She's better." His voice dropped lower, stronger. "She's smarter than any executive I've ever worked with. And she's the only person I trust to stand beside me, not because of her bank account, not because of her last name, but because of who she is." The air grew thick, charged, unspoken, electric. No one laughed now. The weight in the room wasn't just tension. It was fear, because deep down, they all knew Noah Sinclair wasn't bluffing. Lily's name didn't just linger. It landed like a gauntlet, thrown right at the feet of Greenwich most untouchable elite. To the old guard, it was unthinkable. The idea that a woman from Savannah, who lived in a modest home, who didn't summer in Amalfi Coast or carve through Lake Tahoe powder in designer goggles, could step foot into their world, that wasn't just shocking. It was offensive, but no one knew the truth they refused to see. Lily Bennett wasn't some wide-eyed assistant with good manners and decent heels. She was a storm wrapped in silk. She had fought for every scrap of her life, clawing her way through obstacles most of them couldn't even pronounce. While they were being chauffeured to prep school galas, Lily was clocking in extra shifts and keeping her family afloat. And behind that quiet composure, a mind sharper than any corner office executive had ever dared to hire. Later that day, Noah found her exactly where he expected, in the glass-walled nerve center of Sinclair Hotels HQ, high above downtown Greenwich. Lily was on the phone, mid-negotiation, her voice smooth and precise, switching from English to South Koreese without missing a breath. Her expression was calm, but Noah knew the pressure she was handling beneath the surface. She hung up, exhaled slowly, then turned, sensing him before he spoke. Noah cleared his throat. "Lily, about the gala," he started, watching her face closely. She looked up, guarded but composed. "I want you to come with me, as my guest." Her heartbeat skipped, then stumbled. She blinked once. "Noah, I don't think that's appropriate." He shook his head. "It's not about what's appropriate." His voice was gentle, but firm, a man past the point of asking permission from the world. "You're the one holding this entire company together. You know the people, you solve the crises, and let's be honest, you're the smartest person in the building most days. You belong there." Lily closed her notebook with steady hands that betrayed a slight tremble. "I live in Savannah, Noah. I support my mom. I help raise my little brother. I shop clearance and budget for groceries. That world, your world, it's not mine." She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. "If I walk in there, they'll smell it on me. I won't just look like I don't belong. I'll feel like a fraud in borrowed shoes." Noah stepped closer, his voice low but certain. "You're not a fraud, Lily. You're the real thing, and I want them all to see it." She hesitated, not because she didn't want to say yes, but because saying yes meant stepping into the fire. It meant risking judgment, ridicule, being exposed. And still, the words slipped out, barely above a whisper. "Would you? Would you pay for the dress?" It wasn't vanity. It was vulnerability, a quiet test of whether he understood what this truly meant to her. But Noah didn't blink. "No," he said without hesitation. "You'll pick whatever you want, because you deserve to choose, not because I paid for it." Lily gave a small, bittersweet smile, the kind you give when you're touched, but still afraid to hope too hard. "Then I'll come," she said softly. "But I'm paying for the dress myself." That night, Noah sat alone in his high-rise apartment. City lights sprawled out below him like a kingdom he hadn't yet decided how to rule. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, sharp suit, tired eyes, and questions swirling just beneath the surface. Was this foolish? Was he risking everything he'd built for a feeling he couldn't even name yet? The voices of his so-called friends echoed in his head like ghosts. "You're throwing your future away." But deep down, Noah knew this wasn't about status or strategy. It wasn't about dynasties or deals. It was about something bigger. It was about choosing truth over expectation, heart over heritage, something real in a world built on performance. And he was done performing. He knew the storm was coming, but he was ready to stand in the middle of it, side by side with the one person who made it all make sense. If you were Noah, would you risk it all, your reputation, your legacy, to stand beside someone like Lily? Drop your thoughts below. Are you more like Noah, bold, unapologetic, or like Lily, cautious but quietly powerful? If you're loving this story, comment 100 and tell me where you're watching from. Hit like and share if you want to see what happens next. Because the real show, it's just getting started. The grand ballroom sparkled under chandeliers that looked like they were carved from starlight, but the mood inside was anything but warm. Lily Bennett stepped through the towering doors, and instantly, 1,000 eyes turned. Not curious, not kind, watching, measuring, waiting for her to stumble. Noah stood across the room, heart pounding with a mix of awe and something dangerously close to fear. Because this wasn't just another night on the society calendar. This was a battlefield. And Lily had just walked into the lion's den. "She's really here," whispered a woman wrapped in designer jewels, her voice sharp as glass. "She doesn't belong." Another hissed, lips curled in amusement. But Lily? She didn't flinch. She moved through the crowd like she'd been born for it. Posture steady, eyes forward, her chin held high. Every step was quiet defiance. Every breath a silent declaration. "I deserve to be here." Her turquoise gown shimmered under the lights, flowing behind her like rippling water. It fit her like it had been crafted from courage itself. But inside, Lily wasn't calm. Not really. Beneath that lilyful exterior, her heart beat like a drum. She felt the weight of every stare, every whisper slicing through the air. They weren't just watching her. They were dissecting her, waiting for the flaw, the slip, the proof she didn't measure up. And still, she didn't look away. Because sometimes, the strongest thing a woman can do is simply walk into the room and refuse to shrink. Memories flickered behind Lily's eyes like scenes from another life. Late nights in Savannah, the creak of the old floorboards beneath her feet, her mom's tired hands folding laundry in the glow of a flickering lamp. The weight of responsibility, the constant ache of making ends meet. Could she really belong here? Among crystal chandeliers and couture gowns, could she hold her own against stares that sliced like knives and smiles that dripped with venom? Across the ballroom, Owen Mitchell's gaze narrowed. Less curiosity now, more calculated contempt. He leaned toward Noah, voice low and sharp. You're playing with fire, man. These people? They don't just look down on women like her, they crush them. Noah's jaw clenched. The anger was simmering just beneath the surface. I'm not here to shield her, he said evenly. I'm here to stand with her. And if they want to fight, they'll get one. Before another word could pass between them, a figure approached. Richard Sinclair, Noah's father, the legend behind the empire. He stopped in front of Lily, studying her with a cool but steady gaze. Then he turned to his son and spoke low enough for only them to hear. She's not just an assistant, he said. She's a force. Smarter than half the heirs and power brokers in this room. A pause. If you can't see that, maybe you never will. And just like that, the moment cracked, not from drama, but from disruption. A sharp voice rose near the back of the ballroom. Tension flaring at the corner table where the South Korean investors sat, brows furrowed, tempers slipping. A misstep in translation. A contractual nuance misunderstood. The kind of mistake that could cost millions, or worse, trust. Before anyone else could move, Lily stepped forward. No hesitation. No script. She walked straight into the storm. With flawless South Koreanese and a calm, respectful tone, she addressed the issue with precision. She didn't just translate, she bridged, clarifying the misunderstanding, bowing at the right moments, smiling just enough to soften the edge without seeming weak. One by one, the frowns lifted. A chuckle here, a nod there, and finally, handshakes. A deal salvaged. Peace restored. Noah watched from across the room, his chest tightening with a mix of pride and reverence. That was Lily. Not a girl playing dress-up, not a guest of circumstance. A powerhouse in heels and poise, holding her own like she'd been born to do it. But the night's fragile calm didn't last. Owen pulled Noah aside again, his tone more urgent now, like a man trying to shake sense into a friend standing too close to the edge. Noah, seriously, wake up. This isn't love. It's a fantasy. You're risking everything. Your name, your company, your future. For what? A dream you're too blinded to see clearly? Noah's glare was ice and fire all at once. She's not a dream, he growled. She's the only thing in this room that's real. Owen scoffed. You actually think she belongs here? Across the room, laughter flared. A cluster of socialites, all manicured smiles and perfectly sculpted cruelty, whispered just loud enough to carry. One of them raised her glass and smirked. Bringing your assistant to the gala. How original. Lily heard it. Every syllable. Like a slap wrapped in silk. But she didn't stop walking. She didn't slow down. Because Lily Bennett had spent her whole life being underestimated, and she was done pretending to shrink for anyone. Lily swallowed hard. The humiliation, the heat rising in her chest, the burn of being seen but not accepted. But she didn't let it show. Her chin lifted, her spine straightened, and she walked on, refusing to give them the pleasure of watching her crack. Later, when the crowd drifted toward champagne and gossip, Lily slipped into a quiet corner. There, away from the eyes and whispers, the weight of the night pressed down like lead. Her mind raced. Was she kidding herself? Could someone like her ever really fit into this world, without having to cut pieces of herself away to belong? Across the ballroom, Noah paced the grand hall like a man wrestling shadows. His fists clenched at his sides. The doubts had crept in, and they were loud. Could he really stand against everything he'd been raised to uphold? The traditions, the bloodline expectations, the razor-sharp edges of society's judgment? Could he prove that love didn't belong to just the powerful, that it could exist on equal ground? Then came morning, and with it, news that turned both their worlds on end. Lily received an email. An offer. Not just any offer, a once-in-a-lifetime position. Director of operations at a top-tier consulting firm in Portland. A salary that could erase her mother's debts, send her brother to college, and finally put her in a room where her intelligence didn't have to hide behind someone else's nameplate. When Noah found out, his heart clenched in his chest like a fist. The woman he'd gone to war for might be slipping away. That afternoon, the truth finally cracked open in a glass-walled conference room overlooking San Francisco. Lily, you don't have to go, Noah said, voice thick with emotion he couldn't mask. We can figure this out. Together. She turned toward him, her eyes bright, not with hope, but with tears she refused to let fall. You don't get it, she said softly. I've spent years being invisible, living in the shadows of men in suits, smiling when I wanted to scream. This job, it's my moment. My light. My name on the door, not someone else's. He reached for her hand, desperate, but she stepped back, just enough to make it clear. I can't stay where I'll always be the outsider, Noah. Not even for you. Across the room, Owen stood with arms crossed and a smirk he didn't quite believe in anymore. Even he felt it, the sharp crack of something real breaking in half. Noah stood there, silent, shattered, stuck between the love of his life and the prison walls of a world that refused to bend. That night, Lily packed in silence. The zippers, the careful folding, the echo of everything unsaid filling the space between them. No shouting, no final kiss, just quiet. Because sometimes, the loudest heartbreak comes without a single word. Was this love's bitter ending? Or just the beginning of something bigger? Something neither of them had the power to rewrite alone? Because love, it turns out, doesn't always shout in fireworks and speeches. Sometimes it leaves in silence, carrying everything it never got to say. If you were Noah, standing still while the woman you love walks away toward a life she's always dreamed of, would you fight for her with everything you've got? Or would you let her go, so her wings stay free? Type fight if you believe love is worth any risk. Type let go if you believe the greatest act of love is stepping aside. Tell us why. Because sometimes, the most surprising answer is the one we carry in our own hearts. Months had passed since Lily Bennett packed her life into a few quiet boxes and left Greenwich behind. Portland welcomed her like an old song. Slower, richer, filled with a kind of soulful peace she didn't know she'd been craving. In her new role as director of operations at a top consulting firm, Lily was finally living the future she'd once only dared to imagine. Every day brought new challenges, real victories, and, for the first time, the feeling of being seen not just for what she could do, but for who she was. She was respected, heard, free. And yet, beneath the confidence, beneath the career wins and the carefully curated mornings, a quiet ache remained. No amount of titles could erase the memory of that night. The gala, the music, the way Noah had looked at her like she was the only real thing in the room. A love not lost, but paused. Meanwhile, back in Greenwich, Noah Sinclair was unraveling in slow motion. The gleaming halls of his empire echoed with absence. Without Lily, the world he'd built felt colder, sharper, like luxury turned into loneliness. He'd tried everything, drowning himself in work, letting friends pull him into endless distractions, smiling through charity galas and business brunches, but nothing quieted the hollow space she used to fill. Until one night, he stopped pretending and booked the flight. No plan, no script, just the weight of everything he hadn't said. When he arrived in Portland, the city felt unfamiliar, warm, honest, real. Nothing like the polished world he was used to, and maybe that's why it felt so right. He walked into the consulting firm's headquarters without calling ahead. The moment he stepped into that glass-walled office and saw her again, time didn't just slow, it folded. Lily looked up from her conference call, eyes widening. "Noah," she said, stunned. What are you doing here?" He took a breath, steady, nervous, sure. "I had to come," he said, "to say what I should have said the day you left." His voice cracked slightly, but he didn't look away. "I never stopped loving you." A pause. A silence thick with everything unsaid. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of what my father would think. What society would whisper. What the world might say." He shook his head. "But none of it means anything without you." Lily stared at him, trying to measure the distance between who he was then and who he'd become now. And in his eyes, she didn't see a prince trying to fix the past. She saw a man choosing her in the present, scars, storms, and all. So now the question is, if you were Lily, standing at the edge of a second chance, would you open the door? Type yes if you believe in love reborn. Type wait if you think hearts need time to trust again. And tell us why. Because the next moment could rewrite everything. "I loved you from the beginning," Lily said softly, her voice barely louder than the wind. "But I had to stand on my own first, to prove to myself I could be more than just the girl from Savannah. I needed to know I was enough. And I needed you to believe in us enough to fight for it." Noah stepped closer, eyes never leaving hers. "I'm here now," he said, "and I'm not going anywhere. I'm ready to fight. For you, for us, for everything we could be." And just like that, two hearts once separated by fear and pride found their way back to each other. But their story wasn't just about reunion. It was about transformation, about tearing down walls and building something entirely new. Together, they began merging their lives, no longer hiding from the differences that once seemed so big. Instead, they embraced them and turned them into strength. And far away, watching from his place in the background, Richard Sinclair saw the change in his son, not just as a man in love, but as a man finally leading with heart. Inspired by Lily's courage and grounded wisdom, Noah began to reshape the very culture of Sinclair Hotels Group. He rolled out fair wage initiatives, introduced education and development programs for every employee, promoted from within, created space for voices that had always gone unheard. And suddenly, a company once defined by pedigree and polish was being praised for its values. The old whispers of scandal? They faded, replaced by something far more powerful, stories of redemption. And then came the day no one would forget. The wedding, set beneath the southern sky of Savannah, surrounded by flowing water and vibrant blooms. Their ceremony was a living celebration, not just of love, but of unity, hope, and bold beginnings. Lily walked down the aisle in a gown of soft lace, hand-embroidered with traditional lowcountry motifs, a tribute to where she came from and all she overcame. Noah stood waiting in a tailored suit stitched with subtle nods to his family's heritage, a man who once lived by legacy, now fully embracing love. From Lily's childhood neighbors to Noah's longtime business allies, people from both sides of the tracks gathered together, no longer separated by titles or tradition, but united by the undeniable truth that love had made something bigger than either of them could have imagined. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted with applause, cheers, and uncontainable joy. Their first dance. The same song that played the night of the gala, the night everything had started to change. But this time, there were no masks, no tension, no fear, just two hearts wide open, finally at peace. Later that night, beneath a sky scattered with stars, Lily leaned in close and whispered, "I never thought I'd find a place where I truly belonged." Noah smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You've always belonged. With me. With us." And from that day forward, their story became more than a love story. It became a symbol, proof that love really can break barriers. That courage, authenticity, and deep human connection can change not just lives, but legacies. So now we ask you, what part of Lily and Noah's journey moved you the most? Do you believe love can truly conquer fear, status, and social divides? Leave your answer below, because sometimes love is more than enough. It's the start of everything. How does this story speak to your life, your hopes, your past, or your own idea of love? Because at its heart, this story isn't just about Lily and Noah. It's about all of us. It's a reminder that real love doesn't care about social status, last names, or the walls people build to keep others out. True connection, the kind that lasts, is rooted in respect, bravery, and seeing someone for who they really are. Lily's strength wasn't just in her brilliance or her professionalism. It was in her quiet dignity, the way she never let the world define her worth, even when it tried to. She showed us that where you come from doesn't dictate where you're going, and that your value isn't up for debate when you know who you are. And Noah? He started out trapped in a golden cage, bound by legacy, tradition, and expectation. But he chose to break free, to lead with heart instead of fear. And that shift, that transformation, shows us that real leadership means lifting others up, not keeping them in their place. Together, they taught us something powerful. That love, the real kind, doesn't ask us to shrink or fit in. It calls us to rise, to become more honest, more open, more courageous. And that's the kind of love that can change everything, not just our own stories, but the world around us. So if this story touched something in you, if it reminded you of what's possible when we love without limits, comment 100 below and tell us where you're tuning in from. Because somewhere out there, someone else needs to hear this story too, and you just might be the reason they find it.